Hi, I'm Amy Lukes, and this week I am talking about the Kushiel's Legacy series by Jacqueline Carey. It is 3 trilogies. This is the first book, following the adventures of Phaedra no Delaunay, Imriel de la Courcelle, and Moiraine MacFancha. So this is part of my Deconstructing Tropes in Fantasy series, so let me explain that for a second. A trope is usually a plot device or something that you just see a lot, usually within a genre or another type of book. For example, The Audience, something you might see a lot in young adult as compared to adult literature. And a deconstruction is when someone builds up towards a trope, but they carry it out in a way that either shows the real world effects or ends up doing the opposite of what it usually does in other books. Today I'm talking about the Witches, Wives, and Whores Trope, which basically says that women in fantasy tend to be defined by being a witch, a wife, or a sex worker. And actually I think the whore title can be a bit loose. I think it can actually apply to women who are just promiscuous by our standards. Today I'm going to talk specifically about 3 characters, Phaedra no Delaunay, Melisande Sarze, and Moiraine MacFancha, all of whom are a sex worker, a witch, and a wife, and they actually use these things to further their plot. These are actual plot devices and not defining characteristics. Let's start with Phaedra. Phaedra is a sex worker who is also a spy, and because she is a spy, she often gets banished, and she uses her skills as a sex worker not only to survive but to thrive and to keep herself safe from her enemies. Now, there are times in her trilogy when Phaedra is raped or sexually assaulted. Let me be clear, that is not what I'm talking about when I refer to her skills as a sex worker. Let me also be clear that being drugged, unconscious, or coerced means that it is rape and not sex. Now let's talk about Melisande Sarze. Melisande Sarze is a character who continuously uses marriage to get what she wants, whether it's money, power, information, allies. And what we see time and time again is there is a secondary villain, and Melisande is the one who has been manipulating that secondary villain, making her the final and ultimate villain of the trilogy, or 2 trilogy. What makes Melisande different from other expressions of this trope is that she is the ultimate crafter of her destiny. Most of her marriages are political in nature, but she is the one who chooses them, and she is the one who arranges them in order to protect herself or to give herself allies and information. Lastly, we have Moiraine MacFancha. Her trilogy occurs a century after Imriel's trilogy. Moiraine is a young woman who has mastered her own traditional folk magic and essentially travels the world learning other types of magic and undoing magical problems. And very often she is thrown into situations where she's not familiar with the magical situation, she's not familiar with the creatures that she is dealing with, but she has to be the one to use her magic and use other people's types of magic to fix it. And that, based on itself, the fact that magic is the thing defining the plot rather than just her character, is itself trope defined. The point is that it doesn't have to matter if all of the women in your plot are witches, wives, and whores. What matters is that they are not defined by these things to the point that they are two-dimensional and boring. Sex isn't going to stop your characters from being boring. Magic isn't going to stop your characters from being boring. What is going to keep your characters from being boring is nuanced personalities and interesting motivations. Some people don't even bother giving their characters personalities, and that's okay for minor characters, background characters, that sort of thing. But the thing that makes a story interesting and constantly interesting is that the background characters can have rich, fulfilled lives, even when the plot isn't advancing, even when there's downtime. And if your story is anything like a real person's life, there's going to be a lot of downtime. So read this, have fun, and discuss. I will see you next time.